and adapting it for the screen. And I understand you have several things that you want to talk about here.
Different points to make. One of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that no book can truly be completely adapted to film.
So when you say that, you're talking about fidelity, the notion of fidelity, like what happens in the book happens in the movie, and it's not, there's no difference in between.
And with the depth that happens
and the
as
depth,
well. Because a book can be is quite lengthy.
Right.
And takes days to read if you're a slow reader like me.
Mm-hmm.
And a film is, 2 hours is long for a film by today's standards.
Sure.
So
that's the first point, that the media, the two mediums, or the mediums are different. They can't...
Significantly different. And there's a number of things that happen in those differences. One very critical example is the point of view that happens in a book. Many children's books are written from a first-person perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have filmed when you're reading the book, you're reading I.
You're living the experiences through that primary character, right?
Right.
Okay.
And seeing it through their eyes. But when we make a film of that work, we're making something that the audience is sitting back and watching.
Omniscient, right? Is it omniscience?
Well, it's a term I haven't heard, but...
Or omnipotent?
You got me.
Is that what I'm talking about? Like where you take, in the book, if you've got, the narrative is constructed around the experiences of a primary character who is speaking in the first person. When you adapt that to film, that gaze comes out and you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, from the omniscient point of view, is what I'm saying.
And so things that happen in the character's thoughts cannot be expressed well as thoughts. You'll sometimes get voiceover. I mean, even think of any film that you've seen where the protagonist has received a letter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, in a book, you see and
read
the contents of the letter as if you were the person reading the letter. But when you come to a film, they either have to summarize the letter verbally to tell somebody else about it, or the film may show you the letter, but you don't have much time to read the letter. So, because there'd be a lot of dead space in the film while the audience reads the letter. It's done. There's a wonderful scene in Gone with the Wind where the Rhett Butler returns the wedding ring of Melanie's wedding ring, and has an inscribed note, and you very quickly see the inscribed note. But that's an exception. That was also a very long film. So that perspective is that point of view is very important. That's different. There's a complexity to longer stories that necessitates streamlining the story if you're going to make a film version of it. And the streamlining is done in multiple ways. Sometimes it's done by, it's usually the filmmaker eliminates subplots or incidentals of the original work. Again, we're not, just to use an example from something that's not children's film, Gone with the Wind again, that the film version of Gone with the Wind eliminates the children that Scarlett O'Hara bore by her first two husbands. She had 3 husbands, and she had a baby. She had a child with each of her husbands. But when the film is made, those births are eliminated, and this does some significant changes to the plot that I think actually make the film version superior to the book in some ways, by emphasizing the significance of the child and the significance of the relationship with Rhett Butler, making it clear that was a sexual relationship, whereas the others may not have been sexual at all. So that's just one example. We know that in other books, sometimes multiple books are combined together. A really good example of that is what Disney has done in a couple examples. Mary Poppins which is do you call it a predictable series? Are the Travers books of Mary Poppins predictable?
Yeah, they'd be a
series
of books is what I think we call them. In
so
class.
there was a series of Mary Travers Mary Poppins books.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Travers? Travers Mary
mm-hmm.
Poppins books. And so in making the film version of Mary Poppins, Disney took episodes from different books
mm-hmm.
to make the plot. But he also introduced things that aren't in the books at all. The suffragette status of the mother, for example. I think Bert's in the character of Bert. I think
the character of Bert is actually elevated in the film to second billing and becomes a central character in the film, but is a very, very minor character in the series. And that's in your chapter.
And then something where Disney did the same thing is Return to Oz,
mm-hmm.
which is a sequel to The Wizard of Oz, which is actually based on the next two books that Frank Baum wrote mm-hmm. after The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm.
Disney owned all the rights to
mm-hmm.
all the Oz books that Frank Baum wrote, with the exception of The Wizard of Oz. He didn't own the film rights to The Wizard of Oz,
mm-hmm.
but he had the film rights to
the two sequels.
To all the other
books.
In fact, he tried once to do a film version of the Patchwork Girl of Oz, and if you search really diligently from the Mickey Mouse days, you can find a musical sequence from that. Oz is... I could talk at length about The Wizard of Oz. It's a particular favorite, but it's there's been many filmic adaptations mm-hmm. of Oz, some of them quite dreadful. But if I can continue with Oz,
sure.
There are things that are done in making a film version that change details of the book, and I think Oz is a really good example mm-hmm. of that, of several of the things we've talked about, that the whole sequence where Dorothy goes to, she lands in the east and kills the Wicked Witch,
mm-hmm.
has to travel west
mm-hmm.
to kill the Wicked Witch of the West. She's helped by Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, right? She never goes to the south in the well-known film version, but she does in the book. She goes to the south, but that's completely eliminated from the film version. In the film version, the shoes that she wears are the ruby slippers, and that's an inconsequential change to some extent until you start to consider what people think about The Wizard of Oz. In the original book, the slippers are silver, but they're changed to ruby in the 1939 film version because it was shot in Technicolor. They're spending the money to make a color film.
Right.
Let's not waste it on silver shoes. Let's make the shoes ruby. Other things are done in that film version that aren't in the book at all. The Glinda rescuing the travelers from mm-hmm. the field of poppies by a snowfall is not in the book. In the book, they're rescued by the king of the field mice, who owes the Cowardly Lion a favor, and carries the creatures out, the living creatures out. But the snow comes not from a film treatment, not because of the film treatment, but because of an earlier stage treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was easier to stage a snowfall than to have field mice rescue them in a stage treatment. So you start to see some of the compromises that are made, and it also raises one of the serious questions, which I believe both your book chapter and Street talks about. The problem with adapting any literature into film, but especially children's literature, is that people have read the literature and been passionate about the literature in the original source for years. And so